Hello, I'm on take 5 now. I haven't quite been able to get the message across properly, but we'll give it another try. So the readings for today are Romans chapter 5 verses 1 to 8 and Matthew, this is what I'm going to be reflecting on, Matthew chapter 9 verses 35, and then it ends, so you read straight through to chapter 10 verse 8. So on the face of it, Matthew is kind of a tricky one, because in Matthew, Jesus looks on the crowds that are following him and takes pity on them because they're like sheep without a shepherd. So he takes the disciples and he sends them out. He sends them out to the villages, the outlying villages, to find the lost sheep of Israel. He says, don't go to the Gentiles, don't go to the Samaritans, just look for the lost sheep of Israel and heal them, bring them back into the fold, cast out demons. That's the gist of it. Obviously that's a tricky one because we can't be sent out. I wouldn't be talking into a screen or sat on the floor otherwise. And normally in this passage, we tend to look at it in two distinct ways. The first way is that we tend to naturally identify ourselves as the crowd that Jesus takes pity on. So the people on the edge, the people who are excluded for whatever reason, the people who have been lost. We see ourselves as the lost sheep who Jesus has come to find and bring us back. And that's perfectly natural, perfectly healthy. The other way we tend to look at it is that we, as disciples of Christ, we are the ones who are sent out to engage with the people on the edge. And again, that's a perfectly acceptable, healthy way to view ourselves. And 99.9% of the time, that is how we connect with this passage. But I was reflecting on the fact that lockdown has kind of revealed to us that we might not be either of those. We might be the people in the Jerusalem temple. We might be the ones who have been on the in crowd, so far on the in crowd that we haven't even noticed that we were there. And I say that because of the fact that I am sat on the floor talking into a phone. For years, we have all met in church. We've been privileged and lucky enough to be able to share in communion together and sing hymns. We've shared in community events and lunches. We regularly meet outside of church. We have been fortunate enough to be part of a vibrant faith community. We go out, we meet people, we engage. Something happens in the community, we are a part of that, we organise things. We've been very privileged for a long time. And yet lockdown has closed the doors of our churches very decisively. And we've sort of been cast to the various winds, and we've had to scramble to find ways of staying connected. And in doing that, we've emerged onto the internet in a huge way. So suddenly we're all on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, YouTube, Zoom. I didn't know what Zoom was until lockdown. Now I'm sending messages to people, I'm sharing screens, it's all very high tech and amazing. But we've kind of been a bit ambivalent about it, I think. We've sort of gone, oh, this is wonderful, and it is wonderful, but there's always a caveat that we add. We can't wait to get back into church. But if you stop to look around these platforms, you will find that there are people who have been on them for years. And for them, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, that is their church. Some people live out in very rural areas and so can't connect with a faith community. Some people have profound physical disabilities and so can't get out to a church. Other people suffer from mental health conditions that preclude them from engaging sort of socially with things. And yet they have still been desperate to be part of something. They still feel that they want to be church. And so they find clergy or lay people on these platforms, on Twitter and Facebook, who engage with them. They find YouTube channels that produce content, and that is their church. They are the people on the edge. They are the lost people of Israel who have just been excluded and left behind by the vast majority of us. Not intentionally, we haven't done it through any sense of spite, it's just something that we don't think about, because we are naturally sociable and we naturally have that drive to be sent out physically and to engage. We don't think that there is a world that we can't see, but for many people that is the only world of church that they know. And so, although it's uncomfortable, although it's frightening, we have been sent out. We've been sent out to find people who we otherwise never would have engaged with and never would have engaged with us, just in a way that we never imagined. So I suppose the question is, now that we've been sent out to engage, how do we stay engaged? As soon as the church doors open again, we're all going to flock back in. And that's perfectly healthy, that's perfectly natural, you would want that to happen. But in doing that, I really hope that we don't just forget these past months. I hope that we don't forget about the people who we've encountered online and who have encountered us. Because that would be tragic. That would be tragic if, for a few golden months, not only were they engaging with the church, they were sort of our guides in a way, in going, okay, let me show you how you actually do this on Twitter, because you're an amateur. Because I think it would be tragic if that bridge was severed. So now we have occupied the same space, how do we bridge that so we can find a way of being church in a church building, but also bringing those people in a little bit, and likewise enabling us to stay a little bit in that internet world, a little bit on the edge. And I suppose it relates a little bit to the Romans passage. And I'm going to have to read it. Hang on 2 seconds. 2 seconds. There's more than 2 seconds, I'm sorry. And it says, not only that, but we also boast in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not disappoint us, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit that has been given to us. Now, I'm probably stretching it a little bit, but for me, that kind of explains how we've probably felt during lockdown. We've kind of suffered a bit. But hopefully we've discovered a sense of endurance and patience in that, and I would like to think there's a hope there. Yes, we've been uncomfortable. Talking into a phone does not come naturally. Having meetings on Zoom does not come naturally. Communicating so much via social media and phones, even though I'm a very early millennial, still does not come massively naturally. But we have an opportunity to really connect with other members of church, people that we never would have otherwise met had we been not thrust into this situation. And so I suppose if I have one prayer, as it looks like lockdown is slowly going to be lifted, it's that we don't completely abandon the internet. We don't completely forget about filming awkward reflections and putting so much on Twitter and sending out invitations to Zoom stuff. I hope we don't abandon that, because in doing that, we are abandoning people who have made social media their church through a complete lack of options. This is their church. And I just hope that we find a way of bringing them back into the fold and learning from them, because they know how to worship in isolation. They know how to connect with God in a way that never would have occurred to us necessarily before. So I suppose that is my prayer and my hope. Hopefully take 5 will be the last one, I hope. So I suppose in conclusion, before we leave social media, let's try and make some connections and keep those connections. Amen.